It wasn't until I was graduating from the Washington School of Ballet that the director came to me and she said, you know, you're going to have a career. You're a really wonderful dancer, but you're never going to be a ballerina because of the color of your skin.
It was following the assassination of Martin Luther King in 1968 that Arthur Mitchell decided to set up a dance company for black people in Harlem.
Arthur Mitchell was the principal dancer with the New York City Ballet, and he was the first African American to achieve that level in a major American ballet company. He looked around at this neighborhood and he said, these kids don't have a future. Education is terrible, the schools are failing, nobody cares about them. They don't have a way of breaking this cycle of poverty. But if I teach them ballet, I'm going to give them something else to draw from within themselves.
We started with 30 children and 2 dancers. And everyone said I was crazy because I was using a European art form, classical ballet. But I think that's the strongest technical foundation. Once you have that technique, you can do anything you want.
Classical ballet is impossibly difficult, and it requires focus, requires self-discipline, and it requires perseverance.
In 2 months, I had 400 kids. In 4 months, I had 800 kids. So that showed there's a want, a need, and a desire for this.
I got to New York in the fall of 1968. And somebody told me that Arthur Mitchell was teaching class up in Harlem on Saturdays, and I could go up and take class and get a little ballet back in my life. And I joined Dance Theatre of Harlem in the spring of 1969. And right from the start, it was magic.
See, it's too soft. You're doing dum, bum, bum, bum. Hit my hand.
He was maniacal.
It's too nice.
If we were going to do ballet, we were going to be the best ballet dancers the world had ever seen. It was extremely difficult and painful those first years. Nothing that we did was right. He was driving us. He was pushing us every minute. To me, ballet is about the elevation of the human spirit. I always say that dancing on point is the closest that you can get to flying. It's an expression of how limitless the spirit is. So there were black people who didn't want us to do the white man's art form, and there were white people who thought, oh, well, you'll never do it because you can't understand it and you don't have the talent or the bodies. And we were really fortunate for our first New York performances. The big critic from the New York Times, Clive Barnes, said, this is the most exciting thing in ballet. And so he gave us the little nod and people were saying, oh, okay, let's go see them. Let's see if they're any good. 10 years after that, I would see young people walking into the studio with a sense of ownership. Of course I couldn't be a ballet dancer. And that was the most beautiful thing in the world to me, that they had no question, whereas I had nothing but question. In a sense, Dance Theatre of Harlem was ahead of its time. So now, yes, there's a desire to bring more diversity to ballet. We have been performing all over the place, celebrating the 50th anniversary. It's not just about being perfect on balance in a tutu. That's just a sliver of what ballet can say.